Hey everyone, it's the Nitty Professor, and as promised in celebration of Black History Month, I am celebrating a black fiber artist who I was actually excited to find out that my sister knows him. So my sister has an art degree, and I was like, have you ever heard of Nick Cave? And she's like, oh sure. I was like, great. So obviously he's a very important artist, and beyond fiber, he's very important, but that's kind of what I want to emphasize here, and I encourage you to look him up. This book, which I purchased, called Epitome, I'll link it in the description. I bought this kind of to learn about him, do my research. Now this book is 10 years old, so all the accomplishments that the artist has had since then probably won't be discussed, but again, I encourage you to look him up because he's really extraordinary. I'm just amazed at his work just based on this book alone. So we're gonna look at a couple dozen examples here. I marked some pages in this book that I just want to show you guys and talk a little bit about him, just as a starting point. So a lot of what he's known for are these so-called sound suits, and he got started making these at the beginning of the 1990s as a result of the Rodney King murder and the, I believe it's called the Watts Rebellion, 1992. So as a black man, according to my reading, he just sort of had to acknowledge that his body was kind of marked by, othered by the legal system, the forces around him, and he was really drawn to the idea of covering his body in a way that disguised his differences from, the dominant society, but also enhanced, added to in an artistic way. This particular one that I just showed you is from 2006. It's called Clown, and of the fiber ingredients, in addition to sisal, which is a fiber, includes sweaters. Now, one of the things that I find really cool about Cave, his work it's extremely ambitious. I can't believe how many of these suits he's made over the years, really, over a couple decades. Here's another one where we see a lot of crocheted, maybe doilies, I don't know. It's another sound suit. Hey Paris, it's from 2008, and it says it includes quote unquote embroidery in addition to vintage toys. The toys, that aspect of it is really kind of interesting too. Paris, what do you think? She says, I want to be in the way. He got a lot of his materials from flea markets. So included in this book is a sort of a transcript, a cleanup transcript of an interview that he did in the early 2010s. This suit, it says, includes embroidery, beaded and sequined garments. I love the bird in the middle of it. Paris, maybe you like the bird too. See if I can zero in on the bird. Am I finding it? Yeah, it's in the blue part. Hey, little girl, there we go. See if we can find the bird in that field of blue there. There are a lot of birds in these sound suits that I'm finding in this particular book. And so disguise, these sound suits, as far as the impact that they have on the body, they hide the body, but they also, it's like they hide the body, the private identity of the person, especially to the extent that that identity might be deemed unacceptable in society or second class. But they also project a different body outwardly. So there's a kind of a private aspect of protection, but also a public aspect of emotive communication. And in the interview, it's really interesting to read his words because he wants to emphasize play, emotion, like affect, the affective dimension of a person's body, the improvisatory aspect of the art, This soundsuit that I just showed you is from 2009 and includes hats, bags, and shoestrings. So if you look closely, time for something. You can see how the shoestrings are sort of interwoven in portions of this suit. So I'm guessing by shoestrings it means colorful shoelaces, and that's a fiber, right? It's really interesting. I've singled out a number of images here to show you. There's a lot that I'm not showing you because I'm just emphasizing the fiber. But here's the suit I'm going to show you. It's from 2009 and it says mixed media, including synthetic, hair, fabric, metal, and mannequin. A lot of these photographs, the artist himself is the model, and there's an image or two where you can kind of see how the photography is done. He almost always has these colorful socks on, and the mask is, again, it's hiding the private identity of the artist, but it is also enhancing. It's adding this outwardly facing, public, playful. There were a lot of references in this book to carnival, to parades, to ritual, and notions of harking back to his African roots, and the kinds of costumes that were involved in rituals in Africa many moons ago. This one I'm going to show you is from 2006, and it says mixed media, including knit sweaters. Now, these sweaters, so I'm just going to assume that he didn't sit down and knit all of this. He probably found the sweaters at, flea markets or some other source, and then he just put them all together in this sound suit. These are multi-sensory, a lot of them, not necessarily ones that are really mainly of knitted fabric, but I really appreciate the multi-sensory dimension of Nick Cave's art. You can see here it's just sort of a big variety, like an overview of the different costumes all in one installation. Just gives you kind of an idea of the variety, even beyond fiber. There are suits that are entirely made of twigs. Inspiration, when he was young, we read, he had quite a number of brothers. I think that said he has 6 brothers. And he got a lot of hand-me-downs. And in order to personalize his clothes as a young child, he developed techniques for enhancing his clothes so that he could express himself through the hand-me-down clothes that he received. And that was kind of like some personal background. Here we see hooked rugs. I think it's just really endearing how, and again, he could have thrifted these hooked rugs. I don't know. I'm not going to assume that he necessarily hooked all of them. I think they're found objects is my assumption, and he combined them into this costume. His process is very much like camouflage, is what he said in the interview. Here's another interesting one. It says it includes doilies. Isn't that just incredible? Includes doilies. I'm going to try to get the glare away. And these suits are often worn, going back to the whole multi-sensory dimension, and a performance type of setting. They are exhibited in public, maybe at museums or on a campus or in an urban area, and worn by dancers who are sort of explained how to approach the costumes as something that's goes above and beyond their individual self. The costume is supposed to take on a life of its own, and the dancer is supposed to interpret the costume. Here's another one. It almost looks like granny squares. It'd be kind of interesting to try to emulate this art, even if it was just in the form of, like a jacket. It's extremely playful. It's extremely, reminds me of jazz improvisation to the extent that, according to his interview, he doesn't necessarily just plan everything out ahead. He works with the materials, and then he puts it all together in a way that strikes his heart as being right. He really feels called to do what he does. He mentioned that several times, that he's doing what he was destined to do with this art. This one is really interesting. I'm going to show you one from 2010. It includes safety pin craft baskets. It's just fascinating. I'm trying to hold these up so that you can get a good look at them. There we go. The bunny at the top is definitely intriguing. And some of these extend way far above the head, which is also kind of interesting. You can think long and hard. He doesn't have any sort of fast rules for how people should, quote unquote, interpret his art. He wants interaction. He wants the people who see his sound suits to be involved in constructing the meaning from them. This one I'm going to show you is from 2010. It says mixed media including hats, bags, rugs, shoelaces, metal, fabric, and mannequin. Extraordinary sort of shape, you know, it's like really defying the nature of the human body apart from the legs are visible, and there is just so much going on there as far as even just visually but also texturally. It's hard to imagine wearing these, right? But they're meant to be at least exhibited by being worn at some point in their life. Here's another one that includes rugs, another kind of fiber. And these rugs, I don't know, they almost look like braided rugs. Let me know what you think. Rugs on this one. Paris wants to be in on this one. Paris, you've already got your own sound suit on. You've got you purr, and you are furry. Yeah, but I don't know, you make your identity pretty apparent. Fascinating. I am assuming that these rugs are flea market finds that he chose and put together. I'll show you a picture later of his studio. Now there are at least 4 pictures in this book, Epitome, showing mixed media with sock monkeys and sweaters. So I might show you a couple here. I mean, the level of detail is fairly extraordinary. I'm sure, you know, especially with the dimensions, these really ought to be shown not in a landscape type of layout, but in a vertical type of layout. But I can zero in a little bit, show you some details of the sock monkey appendages that are mixed in with the other media there. And there's color variations and shape variations. This one is interesting, almost has a kind of a chicken shape to the body with the fanny protruding. Really interesting. And again, if you look kind of a close-up, you can see what's going on there with the sock monkey parts and the sweaters. I mean, given how many of these there are, this just looks like it's incredibly complex work. And there's so many of them. So, oh, here's an interesting photograph of sock monkey parts. This is a really fun book too. I highly recommend it. It is out of print. I got this from some independent bookstore. Felt lucky to find it online. It's just eye candy on every page. Let me see now where I'm looking. Page 247. This gives you an idea of the performance aspect. Here is from 2014, Performance View Sound Suit Invasion at the Jack Shaman Gallery at the school, Kinderhook, New York. So this just gives you a bit of an idea of how the costumes are supposed to be performed in public. And he had these sound suit, I guess they were called invasions early on, where there's one where there was a series of, there's a bunch of horse-shaped type of costumes with raffia, and again, they would make, you know, a lot of noise when they are being worn and danced in by the wearer. And there's another one way in the back here from 2011, mixed media including beaded and sequin fabric knit sweaters. I'm really intrigued by all these knit sweaters. So I don't, somebody knit them, right? But I don't think all the knitting was done by Nick Cave. Now, he does, and this really intrigued me, he uses a workshop approach to his art. And I really enjoyed reading about that, because that is the approach to the huge murals that are done by the main character in book 2 and beyond of my novel. And, I worked hard on kind of developing a world that incorporates marginalized people working together in these projects. And it was just kind of exciting. There are pictures in this book like this, for example, and you can see all the materials lying around, and then artisans at work using them. During the interview, Nick Cave was asked, what is the role of your artisans? Like, how much creative freedom do they have? How much prescription is there? And he said that he wants the artisans to have a high degree of creative freedom. And so he, provides guidance. Here's a picture of the workshop with all these materials. It's just really inspiring to see this, because when I was coming up with my Yarnstormer workshop in the books of my novel, I went online, I looked at a bunch of, fiber artist studios to just get an idea of what they could look like when I was thinking about the one that I wanted to have in my book. And so I love seeing how this approach of using artisans in the service of one artist's vision kind of plays out. Here's the picture I was telling you about, where we see how the photography works against that white background. So in any case, I'm just kind of bowled over by Nick Cave. I had not previously heard of him until I did the research for this kind of little mini-series, let's just call that. I am enthralled by the multi-sensory aspect of his art. There's some very controversial art in here. For example, he at these flea markets, he came across sort of like blackface type commercial art, Aunt Jemima type stuff, and he decided to integrate that into his art to make a statement. And by the time this book came out, this was kind of a new direction for him, and he was actively working on it. Here's installation with lawn jockeys, for example. It's very close to the end of the book. So I plan to learn more about this artist. I feel like I can use a lot of his approach to art, his ideas, his way of approaching fiber as inspiration in my series, where, I just really want to celebrate fiber art in as many ways as I possibly can, and also just to learn more about it and maybe, develop my own practice. I mean, a part of me wants to go out and just, now that I finished my Teachers of the Visually Impaired program, I should just go and take some art courses, Been a long time since I did that. Another really interesting installation, and I kind of like the nod to the canine in these, as well as the fiber. So let me know what you think. Maybe you have some associations with Nick Cave. Maybe you have seen exhibits by him, or you've been inspired by his work. I think the whole question of like costume and identity is fascinating. There were questions on the interview end about where does art begin and fashion end? And he said, I'm not looking for boundaries. I'm not looking for, drawing fences around things. They're all related. It's all like a continuum. And I really liked reading about that, because that kind of squares with the main artist in my novel series, where, his goal is basically just to touch people. It doesn't matter whether you call it art or craft. None of that is really what the issue is. It's about art. It's about meaning. It's about reaching people, changing minds. And in my own personal, I didn't necessarily see this, although I think I can assume about Nick Cave, but in my own craft as an author, I really want for people to feel seen, because that doesn't happen enough. You know, the dominant race, able-bodied, you know, middle class, whatever, those people are seen all the time. But I still find myself looking whenever I see, you know, a TV show, a commercial, a movie. I'm always looking for those non-cis, non-white, non-able-bodied people to be represented, and they're just not represented enough. So art is not necessarily about definitions or fencing the craft in. It's about, you know, it's about making the world a better place. And I think that this can be argued very safely for Nick Cave, that that is his goal, and he even said as much. And I really like the idea that he feels called to do what he does, because boy, oh boy, it's amazing. So I feel very fortunate that I've had a chance to learn about his art. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about it, and I hope that you explore him further. And in a few days, a week or so, I think Bisa Butler is going to be the next artist that I want to look at. So y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll talk soon. Ciao.